The PS2 is known for some of the greatest racing games of all time. Gran Turismo 4, Need for Speed Most Wanted, and Burnout 3, just to name a few. But one that's not on that list, and for some pretty good reasons, is the weirdest PS2 racing game ever. Freaky Flyers. An airplane-based arcade racer with some of the most baffling character, level, and game designs I've ever seen, while overall just being extremely racist. Developed and published in 2003 by Midway, the company behind a little-known series called Mortal Kombat, Freaky Flyers seems like your basic kart racer. It has a handful of unique tracks, power-ups, speed boosts, and the ability to violently gun down the other flyers. It also has all the typical modes you'd expect, like individual races, a 1v1, minigames, and the most important, the main storyline. But once you choose a game mode, though, things immediately shift. Like most arcade racers out there, you have a wide selection of playable characters, many of which you unlock through gameplay. But where in games like Mario Kart you get to play as Mario, Yoshi, or a spirit of the undead, Freaky Flyers instead chose extreme racism. Quick, come up with the most racist, stereotypical name for a Japanese character that you can think of. Oh, whoa, really, dude? Oh, you're messed up for that. Anyway, in Freaky Flyers, they named the Japanese guy Sammy Wasabi.
Here. Hi, nice to meet you.
There's also an absurdly wealthy Middle Eastern oil tycoon named Sheikh Abdul.
I am going to make that pestilent American donkey pay!
Who is the only character in the game that has a flying carpet. And of course, there's Tracy Torpedoes, a German fighter pilot who wishes to bring honor back to the German Air Force. In fact, she's essentially the face of Freaky Flyers. For obvious reasons.
But let's talk about the race.
My mission is to win Freaky Flyers race.
Yo!
The German Air
Dude,
Force.
stop.
Oh, I will let
Stop.
no one and
Stop
nothing
that.
stop me.
You know, this animation's actually pretty impressive considering it was made with one hand. But the thing is, every single character is like this. Evil German scientist, short Italian mobster, narcissistic American actor, etc., etc. And what's really interesting is that all 14 characters have their own unique story throughout the entire game. After every level in adventure mode, you get a quick cutscene of your character, building out their story and personalities as best as a cheap PS2 racing game can.
It's come to the attention of the Freaky Flyers Governing Committee that you've been, well, robbing people during the race.
What? You're crazy. I've been minding my own business.
Yes, but of course your business is robbing people, isn't it?
Do you want to mess with me?
There's over 2 hours of fully voiced cutscenes in this game. It's definitely not groundbreaking, but focusing that hard on characters was a creative and kind of insane idea for a racing game in 2003, even if they are a bit...
The Kamikaze Express is the world's most technologically advancing flying machine.
extreme. But the characters aren't the only thing that's hyper-exaggerated, because we also have the maps. One of the most important parts of a racing game are the actual maps that you race on. The tight and realistic courses of Gran Turismo, the winding, anxiety-inducing highways of Most Wanted, and the late-night Japanese expressways of Tokyo Extreme Racer. The maps and worlds of racing games all help to create a vibe, whether it be professionalism, chaos, or Breaking Bad Mexico filter. For Freaky Flyers, a game about a bizarre worldwide aerial race, the maps are incredibly exaggerated locations from across the globe. Whether it be the Iran level filled with machine gun flying carpets, literally World War II Germany, minus certain iconography, or the most normal level in the game, outer space. But that's only the tip of the iceberg. Some of the other maps include a Japanese island where you narrowly avoid non-copyright Godzillas, a vampire's estate in Romania where your plane somehow doesn't get stolen, and the dark and gritty crime-infested level of Chicago. Nope, wait, I meant Thugsville. No. No fucking way. Same company behind Mortal Kombat, by the way. And these maps are not small. For 2003, these are relatively simple, yet sprawling raceways with tons of different points of interest, obstacles, and hidden paths you can take. But foreshadowing every Ubisoft game post-2015, these maps are large for the sole purpose of being large. Most of the time, I found myself confused or just bored out of my mind. Oh my god. There's nothing more exciting than racing over a giant empty pit. What is interesting about the maps, though, are the various side quests. These can be as simple as shooting targets around the map, picking up collectibles, or just ruthlessly gunning down the other planes. But you can also do things like take Bigfoot back to his family, stop an act of robbery, or kidnap a princess and return her to the harem she clearly escaped from. I personally couldn't figure out how to drop her off. So I just dragged her around in a sack until the race ended. And thankfully, there are actual rewards for completing these. The most common are another power-up slot or a collection of speed boosts called a highway. But if you complete a harder side quest, you're rewarded with a thermonuclear bomb. That literally didn't do anything. What the hell? The kicker is, though, these side quests and their rewards become essential in the later maps as they make the races winnable. Not easier, winnable. But only specific ones, because some of the aforementioned highways are literally useless from how out of the way they are on the already massive map. This forces you to do all of the side content in order to figure out which rewards are actually beneficial. The later levels basically become a shopping list of bullshit that you need to sift through in order to progress. To make things even weirder, the only reason you know about the side quests or how to do them is because of a narrator who tells you through quippy dialogue during the beginning fly-through.
This ancient civilization is the backdrop as you attempt to defeat a genie, gladiators, and a room full of booby traps where a princess is being kept against her will. Although those things sound unpleasant.
Something as essential as these being told through Marvel-ass dialogue is mind-boggling to me. It's genuinely impressive how often they made playing this game feel like a chore, especially in between races with these special gameplay segments. Every couple of levels in Freaky Flyers is broken up by a minigame to prevent things from getting stale, I guess. And oh boy, do they succeed at that! A tower defense in Mexico that has you defending a fort from attacking banditos. Or there's the other tower defense minigame, taking place in Switzerland, which is in the Pacific Ocean for some reason. You defend an aircraft carrier by launching torpedoes at different ships, but you can only hold one torpedo at a time with no way to unlock another slot, which means your ship is guaranteed to take damage while you gather torpedoes scattered around the map. Or you do what I did and fly in circles, repeatedly picking up the same torpedo and launching it, because your ship is still guaranteed to take damage, whether you leave it or not. With 3 waves of ships to face, this minigame goes on for way too long. But the absolute weirdest minigame in Freaky Flyers has you shrunk down to microscopic size, where you then have to escape a maze of a human intestinal system. It's never explained how you were shrunk or who you're inside of, but you need to reach the end of the intestines without running out of oxygen, dying to white blood cells, or running into what I can only guess is literal poop. Again, the Mortal Kombat company. I ran into a couple issues with this minigame, like invisible oxygen pickups, but with some serious luck, I did eventually escape the human intestinal track in the game about airplane racing. While everything so far has been insanely strange, the vibe, the characters, the levels, there's still one thing left that's no doubt the weirdest part of the entire game. The fact that the actual racing itself just sucks butt cheeks, man. The most important design aspect of a racing game is the sense of speed. That feeling you're actually going fast and not just staring at a screen. Whether that be the blaring scream of the engine, the blurred visuals smearing past you, or the vehicle getting harder to control, all creating a sense of focus and tunnel vision as everything intensifies. Freaky Flyers has none of that. Racing snails in Undertale felt faster than this. Even with the various power-ups and speed boosts around the map, it doesn't change much. There's just nothing. The game literally gives you guns and missiles to shoot down your fellow aviators, and it's still boring as hell. Do you know how hard it is to make a game where you shoot things boring? Apparently pretty easy, actually. It also doesn't help that the controls of Freaky Flyers are dated, to say the least. In the early 2000s, racing games were at their peak. Not only did it have some of the best games, but also some of the best controls and handling. Need for Speed Underground and Tokyo Extreme Racer 3, while visually dated, have phenomenal controls and handling models. Even to this day, they just feel so good to play and strike the perfect balance between realism and arcadiness that just works. Even the fucking Shrek racing game feels better to play than Freaky Flyers. Flying the Planes feels somehow both overly responsive, yet super floaty and mushy. At times, it feels like a crappy water level, but all the water has been replaced with thicket. But my biggest issue lies with the acceleration. Almost every racing game begins in one of two ways. At a standstill, where you can rev the engine to get a boosted start and just sound dope, or a rolling start, where the speed is even across the board. Freaky Flyers doesn't do either of those. Kind of. Every race starts at a standstill, but you can't rev the engine. In fact, if you hold down the acceleration button during the countdown, like you would in any other racing game, it just doesn't register and you immediately fall behind, having to re-press the button. Something that sucks even worse, given the fact that all the other racers start off at maximum velocity. I know I'm being a little harsh, but holy crap, dude, that is absurd. Even for a game whose roots are in absurdity. A rolling start would make so much more sense for airplane racing, and also just be a little more fair. Trying to win and race in this game is a challenge of pure mental fortitude. Are you willing to sacrifice majority of your lifetime escaping the intestines of some random human, only to then lose a race to Andre Le Toilet 12 times in a row? A cutscene of oversized jiggling boobaroos is not worth my hair going gray at 20. However, I need to give Freaky Flyers some leeway. Not only does the game's perception purposely revolve around the absurd and exaggerated, but it comes from a completely different time of video games. I mean, the back of the box is definitely proof of that. Feeling freaky? It's time to get your freak on. Well, I wasn't planning on it, but now I feel a little funny. Hubba. Everything about Freaky Flyers just reeks of the 2000s. The cartoonish art style, the general game design, even the trailer feels like a parody of 2000s video games.
I'm the star of Freaky Flyers, first flying game where you compete in a daring aerial race, explore amazingly detailed locales, engage and conquer dangerous adventures, unleash blazing carnage, and dogfighting in fully open interactive 3D and...
Hold it, buddy. My eyes are up here. While this stuff may seem outlandish now, it really wasn't in 2003. Back then, gaming culture was an entirely different monster and way more niche than it is today. Games didn't need to be blockbuster movies or render thousands of individual teeth to sell tons of copies. Most of the time, the equation in 2003 was pretty simple. Put some smoking hot chicks on it, dude. Yeah, I love volleyball. Freaky Flyers is an incredibly weird and often unpolished game because it comes from that bygone era where the standard for games wasn't necessarily lower, but just different. Developers were allowed to experiment, fail, and have fun because games didn't take multiple human generations to make. It's why so many more games were released back then. Video games were less about mass appeal and more so about whatever the hell the devs found fun, interesting, or could sell to teenagers. Freaky Flyers is unironically one of the best examples of that. It was clearly a quick and dirty, fun side project with an emphasis on visual identity and being weird, made to make some easy money to fund the larger games at Midway, like Mortal Kombat. Sure, it's not perfect. It can be extremely off-putting, it's not that fun to play anymore, and there are glaring issues with fundamental game design, but it's a playable, uniquely weird time capsule of 2003 that reminds us of how much better and worse we have it now. I'm imSushyne, and if you enjoyed this video, you'd really like this one too. Now that everything's out of the way, I'm literally never touching that game ever again. Especially the old mysterious stain on the cover.